Hello everyone, this is Nehawa. So I got diagnosed with fibroids in June of 2019 and I was immediately booked for treatment. I was at the time 32 years and just 6 months shy of my 33rd birthday. I certainly had a lot of symptoms and some of them were more prominent than others. Just to name a few: heavy menstrual bleeding, irregular cycles, menstrual periods that lasted more than a week plus. Sometimes my menses will come 3 times in one cycle, frequent urination and difficulty while trying to urinate. This caused me UTIs over time. Also constipation, bloated, always look pregnant, pain in the pelvic area and around my waist, and with time this pain pushed down towards my feet and I would have swollen feet. Also there were hormonal changes, hot flashes from time to time. A lot was happening. So fibroids did have a great effect on my family and personal life, I would say, even my work life. Personally, it affected my psyche. It also traumatized me a lot, and it also messed with my self-confidence and how I saw myself when I looked in the mirror. I used to be a very slim-sized lady all my life. I never had weight issues until I had a miscarriage and the fibroids went haywire. And that's when it was noticeable that things were wrong. There was so many things wrong with me. I didn't like the way I looked in the mirror. I was constantly looking bloated and pregnant. And also, whenever I was on my menstrual cycles, I was always so conscious. And because of that, I wasn't able to dress up the way I wanted. So I would always be dressed most of the time in black whenever I was on my menstrual cycles, and that just kind of also just translated even after my cycle, and I kind of just had an entirely black wardrobe. Also personally, being someone who was married, I began to wonder if having a miscarriage and having fibroids would hinder my chances of ever getting pregnant. And my husband and I tried for some time, it didn't work out, and that frustrated me quite a bit. So I was constantly stressed about this. And also in terms of my family, I guess anyone who's close to you and who loves you and sees you in so much pain and there's not much they can do to help you, they feel kind of helpless. And I felt really bad when I went home to see my mom when it was actually in a very advanced stage, and she was just shattered. She really didn't know how to act. The last straw for me was when I actually went to see my mom, and she was just besides herself at the way I looked, and she would constantly sneak peeks at me when she thought I wasn't looking, and she would just watch me while I struggled to walk. I always, the pain was really so much, I would waddle sometimes, and it was really something traumatic to experience. Even post the surgery, that's another story. There's also challenges that come with post surgery, and levels of depression, levels of recovery, levels of pain. So yeah, I would say fibroids really affected my life in so many ways and others, but I'm grateful to be where I am right now. So I had multiple fibroids, and the danger was that most of them, especially those that were heavy in size, were sitting on my uterus. And so the doctor was very specific in letting me know that there is a possibility that in trying to extract this, they might have to take away my womb or my uterus. But he didn't upfront offer me a hysterectomy. He, in fact, did everything in his power to kind of preserve my uterus for me, which he did, and I'm grateful for that. So for me, I'm grateful that I had a doctor who was quite knowledgeable and experienced in these things, and he did give me great advice on what option to go for. Because of the sizes and the number of fibroids which I had, it was not possible for me to go for minimally invasive procedures. However, I had to do an open cut myomectomy if the tables were turned and I didn't have such a severe case of fibroids, I probably would have opted for one of the options like the UFE, or probably go with laparoscopic laser, or a minimally invasive myomectomy. But mine was quite severe that there would have been a possibility of a hysterectomy. But I'm grateful that my doctor was very knowledgeable, and he was very sensitive, and he did everything he could possibly do to preserve my uterus. I'm really glad that you asked me this question, because it's very important and very vital. So this is where I really get the opportunity to explain my story to you. So I'll take you a walk through how I found out, what information I was exposed to before and after I had my diagnosis. So prior to my diagnosis, I had very little info about fibroids. Yes, I mean, I did know that there was something called fibroids, which were tumors that grow in the uterus or the womb of a woman, but I really didn't know anything about what its sources were like, what are its triggers, what demographic of women are getting this. I really didn't know anything about this. And besides, coming from Cameroon, where there was always a stigma attached to this condition, I mean, basically, back at home, women's health is usually very much attached to infertility. So there's a lot of negativity that comes attached to a condition like this. And back at home, we didn't have that much resources. And a lot of the doctors were not sensitizing the young ladies. I, for one, growing up, I remember when I was younger, I used to always have this irregular cycle and heavy flow and everything. I was a late bloomer. I didn't have my menses till very much later. And my mom did take me to a gynecologist, and he was like, it's okay for women to have irregular cycle from time to time. It's okay. I wasn't ever educated on, oh, it's not normal. If you have irregular cycles, if you have constant bleeding, it's not okay. So this was some of the kind of things that we weren't exposed to back at home. And that's why right now, I'm doing the most that I can to get this information to the grassroots so people can be sensitized properly about what fibroids is. I'm not sure if I already had fibroids existing in me or growing in me before I had my triggers. That I can confirm. But one thing I can tell you, that my trigger was a miscarriage, pregnancy and a miscarriage. So I like I said in my earlier video, I was very tiny. I was quite petite, very slim. From time to time, I had bloated tummy, but I was a very petite person. And when I was pregnant, I was still very petite. And it wasn't until towards the end of my first trimester, I had a miscarriage. Right now, I cannot confirm to you if my miscarriage was due to the fibroids or if it was due to some medication that I took at the time when I was actually sick. So I can't confirm what my miscarriage was, what caused my miscarriage. I really can't confirm what caused the miscarriage, but then I had a miscarriage. And immediately after my miscarriage, the changes, the hormonal imbalance, everything started rolling like a ball. It was crazy. The changes were just too obvious and too quick and too rapid. So I can tell you for a fact that my main trigger was this miscarriage, because everything went crazy from then on. I started to get thicker in the waistline. I started to get heavier, and there were times that the fibroids used to actually crawl in my abdomen, but I still wasn't aware of what exactly was happening. I saw a gynecologist or two, and all this happened back in 2017. So I did see a gynecologist, and I was actually going through a hard time. I was trying to wrap my head around the loss of a child and just being a newlywed. And I went to see a gynecologist. And once again, I was assured by the gynecologist it's normal to have hormonal imbalances after you lose a child. It's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. So don't worry about it. You'll have kids once you're with your husband. So I didn't pay much attention to, you know, these changes, because I thought, well, this is fine. But then, this was back in 2017, but then between 2017 and 2018, the physical changes were too great. So it was really obvious that something was happening. And also internally, there was a lot happening. I started to have hot flashes all the time. The pain became excruciating. The pressure in the pelvic area was massive. I would have periods and be nauseated. I began to mimic pregnancy symptoms. Most times in my cycle, whenever I was having my periods, I would be mimicking pregnancy, constant constipation and bloating. And I just remember, you name it. I got all kinds of slim teas because I was on all kinds of weight loss diets, and still it wasn't working out. I went to see a doctor. At this time, I was already living in Dubai. I went to see a doctor, and in fact, her diagnosis was that I had H. pylori. And so for almost 9 months, she was treating me for H. pylori, and there wasn't any change. There wasn't any change. In fact, I was getting bigger, rounder. The pain was getting worse and worse, and the pressure was just increasing. At this point, my feet were swollen. My complexion became so much darker than usual, like a pregnancy cast. You know, like when pregnant women have after they give birth, they have like a pregnancy cast. I had those things. And also the UTIs, because of the constant urinating and the pressure and difficulty to urinate, all those things. This is when all these symptoms, which I already had them in very minimal levels before, began to actually exhibit themselves in full force. So at this point, I'm like, this cannot just be H. pylori. I spoke to my cousin, who is actually a doctor of pharmacy, and she's like, really, H. pylori? You know, but still, we didn't put it as fibroids. Then I started to do my research. I began to put in these symptoms that I was having in the internet. Thank you, Dr. Google. And I have to say, Google is truly your friend, because I had so much information on Google, and that's when my mind really began to open up to all the possibilities of what this could possibly be. You know, I joined a lot of forums about women's health and fertility. At first, I thought this might be PCOS, but then with time, I began to see that it's possibly fibroids, and especially with the anemia and all of that. So as soon as I went to see my mom in 2019 actually. So this actually pushed through for like 2 years straight. So in 2019, I went to see my mom because my dad was quite sick, and he was really, really, really sick. And I went home to go assist my mom, take care of him. In home, my mom and my dad could instantly tell that there was something gravely wrong with me. And it was my dad and my mom's genuine concern that really pushed me to say, okay, look, I need to get a second and third opinion. So immediately I got back to Dubai. The first thing I did, straight from the airport, dropped my bags, booked an appointment, and I went straight to see a specialist. And this was the doctor that put me through everything. He was a very nice, much older gentleman from Lebanon, and he was very knowledgeable about these things. He walked me through every process. He taught me a lot of things. What are the options? Why? And, you know, he really told me there is no clear source of why fibroids happens, but he listed me a number of triggers. And so this doctor really walked me through. Once he saw me, he told me, I can tell that you have fibroids just by looking at you, but I'm going to run an ultrasound scan for you just to locate the fibroids and to know, kind of have an idea of the sizes. So he did an ultrasound right there in his office. He told me, you have multiple fibroids. I cannot decipher how many you have, but I would need you to do an MRI scan. So, and he told me, this is severe, this is critical. We need to book you for a surgery as soon as possible. So get ready. Between the next 2 to 3 weeks, we need to get this done because it's really quite advanced. And from then on, he was very thorough. He booked me for everything: blood tests, physical assessments, ENT doctors. I'm asthmatic. He put me through everything. He was extremely thorough. every possible test that you can imagine. I went through it, and when I did the MRI scan, and the results were out, he told me, you have multiple fibroids. There's more than 30 plus fibroids, and there is a ton of them sitting on your uterus. I will do everything I can to preserve your uterus, but if it comes to shove, I will have to save your life first, and there's a possibility we'll have to do an emergency hysterectomy. So Dr. Simon actually walked me through everything. We had multiple conversations from that day forth. I was in the hospital every other day. I would go to work, come back after work, I'm in the hospital taking a test or seeing my doctor. He walked me through and prepared me through everything in as short as 2 weeks. And within two and a half weeks, I actually went in for a surgery. So yes, the doctor walked me through everything. He gave me a dietitian who put me on a diet, kind of like a detox diet to kind of, just prepare my body for what was coming. And I really was on a lot of forums. That is how I was able to join a forum called We Can Wear White on Instagram, and they really indirectly prepared me for what was coming. I promise you, that was a good platform for me, and that's why I'm really grateful to them. They might not know this, but they played a very major role in building up my confidence for me to be able to go through with that surgery. And I also was spiritually quite connected at the time. I prayed a lot, and I just let it hang in the hands of God, really. So what I like to say to other women that are currently suffering from uterine fibroids is, number one, you need to know that you're not alone. There is a whole community of women like myself out there who are experiencing or who have experienced the same journey that you are on, and you can rely on some of these experiences to bring you comfort. I, for one, know that some of the stories gave me some kind of perspective in life, and it kind of like prepared me for what I had to go through and how to handle it post treatment. And secondly, I would like to advise that early detection is key. When you have an early diagnosis and you have a good team of medical officials with you, you can actually have a head start on this. I also want to tell the women in similar condition that you should not be ashamed of your current situation. This is not your fault, and no one should intimidate you into thinking that there is something that you have done wrong to deserve this. You do deserve to have a good quality of life, and you can start by making small amends, putting your health in as a paramount factor amongst your objectives. And thirdly, I want you to know that if you feel like something is wrong in your body, if you feel off, then something is definitely off. Your body doesn't lie. If your body is going through something that is off, it certainly will make a signal. Do not ignore such signal. Don't be shy to have second, third, fourth opinions. If you are not comfortable with a decision or a recommendation that's been given to you by a medical official, then you are allowed to have as many options as you want. And the decision at the end of the day for whatever treatment you have to go through with is your decision, but I would advise to you to be wise in making your decisions. Secondly, there are many options nowadays, and you can choose from a variety of options. So don't be intimidated into thinking that there is just one specific option that you must go with. Some people would say it's only the holistic way that's the right way. Some people would say it's only by having a surgery that's the right way. I would say keep your mind open, keep your options open, do what's best for you, pray about it, and just really be quite informed. Keep yourself informed. Don't stay off the information blogs. There is a lot of information, but also keep your information filtered and kind of just take some of these experiences and match it up with yours and see what works for you. What works for A might not necessarily work for B. I know so many survivor fighters like myself who have gone down the holistic path and it's working for them. I, for one, I didn't do a complete holistic approach, but I did have to go. It was absolutely no way but an open surgery for me. And for those people who happen to be around you when you're going through this period, it's very important for people to be a little bit sensitive to your situation, because there is a lot of trauma involved, a lot of mental instability that comes with dealing with an intense condition like fibroids, because there's so many changes happening at the same time. And keep love as the mantle. For a fibroid fighter, be patient. Do not lose your cool when people throw jabs at you, because they will throw jabs at you. They don't know your story. They don't know what you're going through. But keep your head high. This is a journey. We are holding each other's hands together. There is so much that you can do. In the last couple of months, I and my friends actually started a safe space for women where we sensitize them on the knowledge of fibroids and management of fibroids, and basically information that they're not privy to in regards to fibroids, what the options are. And back in my community, we do not have a lot of options in regards to the treatment, so it's very limited. So we kind of try to assist these women by not only giving them knowledge, but also giving them an opportunity to have a first-hand diagnosis through free ultrasound scans, so they can have a head start on whatever the treatment journey would be. So this is basically how we've been assisting or empowering or encouraging women to walk, to take this walk, knowing fully well that they're not alone. Well, it is a journey, as you rightly put, and that means that we're constantly on the move towards the fight against fibroids. It's not something that we endorse in our lives, and so whatever we must do to fight this ailment and to bring awareness to the peoples, then we must. So it's a never-ending journey. It's one step at a time. Baby steps, toddler steps, kid steps, then teenager steps, then adult steps. We eventually get there. But the whole point and the whole mission and vision of what I'm trying to do alongside my friends is to make sure that we don't stop the fight, but we keep the fire burning.